mature means recognizing the practicalness and in some ways the hypocrisies that nihilism lends itself to. I have a funny story about the night we shot this coming up right here.
Okay.
Now, in the lobby of this building, there was a fountain which was turned off, but the water was kind of basically at floor level. And right before this shot right here, I was sort of trying to get, appropriately in that mode right there, and I just turned with all those extras around and stepped right into the fountain. I was up to my calves in the fountain. But fortunately, the shot didn't have my feet in it.
Literally,
That's outtake material, my friend.
Literally like 5 or 6 people, crew members, just stepped in that fountain over the hall. It was just
They did?
you would hear splash, 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 and we would go, oh shit! And what you would do, son.
Edward's strength is he always knows where he wants to be within the context of the story. The drawback is sometimes it's plain and keeps it from being fresh, in theory anyways, but the guy is just so exquisitely good that he never gets in the way. Me, I'm the opposite. I let the day dictate what's going to happen, and so for me it's more of a hit and miss. Drawback for me is when I'm missing, I'm really missing. I don't have that to fall back on.
I always liked that her voice, we talked about that when we were writing the script about, or working on it, just about how her voice should trigger the explosion.
Yeah.
See, thematically speaking,
That's good stuff.
I always thought that at his moment of sort of desperation, he kind of has this impulse to call the woman, which is pretty much the impulse he should have been following all along. But she's too much like him. He sees himself reflected in her too much.
It's these underlying themes that we don't state, but just hating someone the most because they represent you, yourself, they reflect your life. It sounds good.
And so, as soon as he hears that voice, he hangs up and then basically calls the other guy, who of course is an imaginary friend. So really that's the moment of the beginning of true psychosis there. Although I guess he was talking to himself on the airplane. And I guess he did. He set the explosion in his apartment already.
Oh, he's already done that, yeah. He's just not dealing with it. He's still in denial.
So he's basically been a sick twist from the first frame of this film.
Yeah. Fade in. Sick motherfucker. Goes on.
I actually wanted to, before we started, I was trying to get Finch to let me be the self-help group leader. Look at you. Feminist side. So you created your whole image.
When was that?
Again, it was one of those 14-hour looping days where Finch and I were getting all this laugh happen. And the last take, we're just doing some potato chips. I just love that he grabbed that one.
Now this scene was another scene that was not in the book that was kind of a collective effort in the office.
Yeah.
No one cared for that. I love the Lorraine Bobbitt reference. It just never went over. It seems crushed me.
This kind of came out of a lot of this kind of came out of a lot of spitballing.
A lot of nerve basketball.
A lot of influence.
We had a longer rehearsal period on this than any movie I've ever worked on.
We spent most of it.
We spent most of it shooting Nerf hoops. Most films do tend to wrap things up thematically in a bow and let you go out of the theater knowing exactly what the message was that you were supposed to take from this. And when films that muck around in these kind of ideas resolve in some ways ambiguously and dump a lot of it in your lap and say you have to sort through some of this yourself and figure out what it means to all of you, what components of it you agree with, what components of it you disagree with. It's very uncomfortable. People don't like it.
I love doing sequence and getting Viagra into this sometimes. Viagra had to be in there. It's exactly right. Your instincts were right.
Thank you. And yours was yours.
Well, that's the more obscure anal leakage reference.
I knew I wanted to be in this movie the minute I heard that we were going to get to say fuck Martha Stewart.
I was hesitant until I saw the Kmart commercials and I said, alright.
I've met her. She's actually a handsome lady and very nice.
What do you guys think of Rosie O'Donnell? Rosie O'Donnell was terrible.
I know, but I don't
No,
really.
that's okay. No, but she was saying this movie disturbed me. I could not sleep for nights. It hit a nerve. It struck some nerve whether she wanted to look at it or not. And that's what I
No.
Yeah, but they did she gave away the ending on national television.
Yeah, I know.
It's just unforgivable.
The totally attracted supposed to be bitter.
Pleasure.
Yeah,
Shows the
bitter worse.
Because basically anyone who's seen the movie, bought the DVD, and decided to go ahead and listen to all this is a fan or is liking it.
You think so?
Yeah.
Or
So
for ammunition to bring us all down.
Exactly.
no, I'm just gonna assume the positive, assume that anyone listening in here is cool.
I think another thing that was sort of informed the whole experience of doing Fight Club for me was that I was playing a supporting character, you know, who was working 40 days over 113s and spread across that period. So it was quite difficult. I suppose one of the greater challenges was trying to remain emotionally involved and concentrated and coming in, you know, having had 3 weeks off to do another scene and somehow, you know, resurrecting her. I'd never been asked to do that. I never had to sustain a performance over 6 months, but, you know, erratically, that was definitely one of the sort of challenges of the job.
I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
Let me tell you a little bit about Tyler.
Yeah.
Now the casting for this.
Fincher appears in all his films. With a big tan.
I don't tan well, except in a few places.
Now the thing about cigarette burns in actuality is don't they run most movies on a platter now?
Yeah, so that it's an irrelevant joke, but who's there for posterity?
Sure.
There must be some theaters where they still have to switch reels.
This was our first. This was your
This
first
was my
day.
first
Yeah,
day.
that's when
That's right, this was Brad's first day.
Brad came in and we shot till like what 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
I think by the end of it, he was going out to get in his car and he had his little face like, oh my god, this is gonna be like this.
We didn't know that. You guys had to go on.
No, you left pretty late. You
No,
left.
I left a little earlier than you.
Time flies when I'm with you guys. My mom actually justifies this whole entire movie because I warned her going in, but she
Who's the
it's all
best?
alright with her because
Who's the best?
I
Huh?
play a character who's not really.
Who's the best boy, huh?
It's really good to do.
You.
So she can sleep at night.
That too.
I always like the fact that I was actually eating with the people before I turned down and broke the fourth wall.
I love that, and
You're
Brad
the best.
is in his choices.
Around.
And sort of utterly present performer.
This is a scary thought. I'd rather just not think
You
about it.
know.
My introduction to the whole of the Fight Club scenario was over the whole Oscar period, and I was being sent lots and lots of scripts, as it often happens when it's just the last time you want to read anything, because it's all those by having to do 10,000 interviews. But just before sort of at some pre-Oscar party, I met Brad, and he approached me, and I'd read it, and I felt ambivalent feelings about it, and I felt that, well, it's a tricky thing for him to, we discussed a sort of moral issue, whether it was responsible for the film fitting together, and he was very intelligent about it, very easy to talk to. Anyway, we discussed it, and then I met Fincher, I guess, a week later, and then was very impressed with him, particularly because he was so completely unlike what I'd expected. I thought I'd get a very, full 150% testosterone, sort of macho, possibly somewhat immature adult. And actually what struck me about Fincher was he's particularly soft and feminine, but highly articulate and persuasive individual. But I didn't need to be that persuasive because I just thought, well, between the three of them, the intelligence, the talent, and the writing, there's a highly literate script. You just don't get film scripts, certainly like in mainstream or big budget films. You don't get that level of high intelligence.
I think it's so clear that in this scene, the whole point that is articulated is not, I'm feeling shitty about all these things we've been talking about, so I want to punch you in the face as a result of it, but that the point was to take the hit, that it was more about the receiving and the shaking me out of my own
Not sort of integration.
having experiences. Yeah, having the experience yourself.
Even if it's difficult.
This is my best I've living right here. Man.
Yeah.
Just a little free-form interpretive dance session there, unchoreographed.
I love the post-coital smug.
Yeah, it's touching.
We reshot that, but it didn't get used. Why? Too long.
When I first read it, it took a bit of explaining. I mean, I found it intensely funny in a dark way, but also felt there's a message here that could be misunderstood. Admired it for its boldness, but knew that it needed careful and responsible handling because it could be taken literally. I knew it'd be controversial, I knew it'd be misunderstood, but I knew that the position from which all the main artists were working, the director, Edward and Brad, they all had the right intentions and the right sense of they were operating from the right place.
One of the most interesting things about the experience of this film for me was watching the way of the response. And I think part of what was exciting about it is that on some levels, you know, a movie like this is not for your average mainstream audience, and yet it got made by a major studio at a pretty lavish production level, which is very exciting because I think we knew it was going to be provocative and saw that as the whole point, and it was interesting to watch it sort of wash across people. What's so interesting to me is so many of these critics, I mean, and that's not to say that in sum total, I would say, you know, reading through sort of the national critiques of this film, you know, through the packet, I would say probably 70% of them, I would think, fully went with the idea of it and were very supportive of its complexity, but there was that sort of reactionary 30% that were tossing around words like this is a fascist film and, you know, this is just negative and brutalizing and all these things. And ironically, I felt like a lot of it came from the left, you know, it came from sort of the reactionary left, which is not what you would expect. People coming up to me and saying this movie really shook me up, or I was thinking about it too late. That's the idea, that's the ultimate compliment. I mean, that's why you do a film like this.
By the end of the first year, water and electricity mixture. I'm not thrilled about it myself.
It's not electricity.
No.
Mosquito.
But I love the idea
Mosquito.
of Tyler's this guy who just he doesn't like bother himself with any issues. He's standing ankle-deep in water and he's trying to really quickly get a fuse out. That if you do it fast enough, so
You can beat the speed of light.
yeah,
There's
exactly.
more here because you know you're in my spot. You know that. You know.
As I recall, we were somewhat trashed here.
You know.
You
You
guys
know
were.
you're in my spot.
I do remember that we kept getting our own food truck.
Yeah. The balls ricocheting in the truck.
Listen to what? Listen to what? Listen to what? You. Listen to what?
Everything will swell and trying. Everywhere
That's not good.
almost out of control. Being a bit of a shadow.
We looked for ways to just create our own entertainment. So that and golfing came out of.
Man, you really make it.
Yeah, Fincher chickened out.
So I'm like, what are you talking about?
There was a great shot where Brad went past me and I flicked my flashlight up and we had a great shot of Brad's naked ass riding away.
I gotta say, it's too much.
It was.
It's too much.
There it is right there. And
It's too real. There's too much sensuality.
Well, that came from a real wreck. What happened was I actually wrecked before on play. We control one in the corner there. And then we tried to recreate.
Get some.
The
Look at all.
recreation of the wreck.
We could reshoot that.
You are.
Who's next on? What is the DVD cut?
now this was a scene that got reshot.
That's right. This is the scene.
Yeah, we shot this originally on the couch, so outside in the back, and this one was the one that came out so much better the second time. So much better this time.
It was this kind of investigation for it.
Yeah.
So, whatever we do,
I love the idea that they're so comfortable around each other.
Don't hit the camera.
For each other with the sound program.
Is that true?
Yeah.
A lot of people went out for Halloween dressed as Tommy. Well, there you go. The two people go dressed as Kent Ryan.
this scene was verification for gays that were saying we didn't need women. It's just, I mean, it's further proof why we don't need women. We should just be the guys. I don't know what procreation fits in that. I always thought of this as, I think it's a fantastic line, but I certainly always took that as in this time, being right now, when we're such a mess, we gotta put that on hold and work on ourselves here, but figure out what's up, and then we'll address the whole vagina issue. Let me say this too, the beauty of it is, take what you want, run with it. I'm all for it.
Now this shot was shot about 4 months after we finished the film as a reshoot. We done the original shot, but you couldn't actually see me or recognise me, it was too wide. I walked down the steps and lit that cigarette about 36 times.
Did you see
Alright,
that
as
time?
low as I can go.
Good.
When?
The Versace thing?
Oh yeah, I did see that.
Her new line of clothing, her spring line of clothing is effectively cool.
The kid, really.
Like that sentence.
For the true wonks, Michael Kaplan, costume designer, also
Extraordinary.
did Blade Runner
Gotta start with Blade Runner.
and Flashdance, which we're not sure whether we should applaud or boo him for, but he did put women all over American leg warmers and French sweatshirts.
That moment where he flashed the TV,
Yeah.
it was actually between takes.
Right.
We were rolling camera, I said, let me see how much blood's there, and just like that.
Huh.
We gotta use that.
That's great.
I love this intro. I love this intro. You like this?
Yeah.
This jack off shot.
What was his name?
Paul,
Paul, right.
great voice.
Yeah, I guess. Except that every day I would turn and go, oh, Neil Young's in the set. It's a really good shot. It only took about 40 times.
Worth it. Go all week on this shot.
Yeah. Brad and I were talking the other day about how when we first came into these loose tavern scenes, we both looked around and went, oh my god, everyone here is like a middle-aged biker. And we both found out we independently went to you and said, you know, we really should get a couple more
Practicing yuppies.
practicing yuppies in here.
Oh, do you see that?
Yeah, no, but you did, we got them in, and
Yeah, it did look like a biker bar.
yeah, it was a little too fringe. Okay, I admit it, we're a little underlit here, Frenchie.
Stop.
It's supposed to be in total dark.
That's right.
Then
Here they
it's
come.
lights on. But there's supposed to be a little bigger difference between the lights being off and the lights being
I
on.
remember you getting a little agitated that day when it was supposed to be this big shootout and nothing was really happening.
It's like nightlight whatever.
Remember we played with the idea of having me lip syncing with Brad on these, or
Yeah.
just subtly.
We shot with that then.
When I first had my first interview with Fincher, I did sort of have huge reservations because I'm not particularly pro-violence on film, particularly not when it's gratuitous. Having said that, since the whole film was about fighting and the mentality behind it, it could hardly seem gratuitous. But watching it and also discussing it with Fincher, as a woman, I thought it was a real keyhole glimpse into what it means to men and the need to fight, and not so much to inflict violence, but to take it. And it isn't so specifically about violence for violence sake, but it's more to do with the sensation of feeling alive. I mean, it's a desperate statement to say about society that people have become so benumbed and so dead, spiritually and emotionally, that they have to hit themselves in order to feel truly in the moment. It's the same sort of psychology as any kind of addiction or any kind of self-destructiveness, that people need to inflict pain on themselves to try and obliterate the other kind of psychological pain they might be suffering from.
I said to Fincher when the first time I read the book, I called him and I just said, you know, if we get this right, or if we get the tone of this right, it'll be like The Graduate, you know, which just seems like a strange comparison because obviously none of the specifics are similar at all in terms of the context. But you know, if all stories are the same in the end, or if there's really only a few core stories, I think this is kind of just like The Graduate. It's the story of youthful dislocation and of the feeling of sort of entering the adult world and feeling out of sync with the value system that you're expected to engage in, and trying to figure out the answer to the question of how to be happy. And I think The Graduate, you know, is very much about a guy who's out of sync with what he's expected to plug into. The thing I love about The Graduate is that at the end it's so ambiguous. It's no clear-cut victory, or it's not, you know, they're smiling, heading off on the bus together, and you know they're going to be happy forever. It's more just that there's sort of a feeling, I'm not quite sure what I've done here, but I think I've at least taken a step in the right direction. And I mean, Fincher and Bradley used to talk about it a lot. It's a story about a person finding a path to maturity, or going on a journey of figuring out how to be mature. And in a similar way, it's not quite the same complaint, but I think this Fight Club is very much a story about a guy feeling disconnected and numb in the face of the value systems, who through Tyler, like Mrs. Robinson, goes off and basically explores his more nihilistic impulses, his impulses toward just saying fuck you to the whole thing.
We got worked up just watching these fights are set. We watched the 20 takes, and You say you woke up, you can't help it. Don't know what that is. But the DNA starts moving. There's a pretty damn line to it, because I see the exact same energy and rush we had sitting around watching these fights as I grew up in the Bible Belt. The exact same thing in a revival. That energy that takes over. And people say that's God, but it's the energy of the mob. And I love how Tyler's always in the background,
Out of focus.
like the little devil on the shoulder.
The little voice in your head.
It's fun actually to, once you have watched the movie and you know what the real underlying reality of it is, in terms of Jack and Tyler, it's fun to watch it and think about the whole thing from Marla's perspective. Most people I know, even the ones who loved it the first time, have said that they really liked it more the second time, that they got much, much more out of it the second time. Because it's such a sad and funny portrait of a guy who's completely insane.
That was my glamour shot. This is when my character's OD'd on Xanax, something that I wasn't particularly familiar with myself. I remember going to the medical for insurance before doing the film, and at the end of my interview, I said, well, how many Xanax do you need to take in order to kill yourself? And she did look at me a bit oddly. Then I explained, of course, it was for a role.
All right, here, I was supposed to be back there doing some kind of sit-ups or something. I don't know how the martial arts started getting worked in, but this was the first moment. And just asked if anyone knew any nunchucks, had any nunchuck moves. One guy showed us a little move, and doing absolutely nothing that makes any sense, but in the distance, it looks like someone know what I'm doing. I love all that falling in the frame, showing a moment in the frame, out of frame.
That's a good boy.
I'm trying to keep Marla playful, so it didn't seem like, even though she's, you know, a kind of fashionable nihilist, there's something playful about her.
And this was a shot. Those aren't my breasts, I hasten to add. I wish they were. But this is a computer-generated shot, which consisted and demanded me and Brad taking sort of positions in Kama Sutra for about 12 hours and have still cameras take pictures of us. So we were covered in dots, painted white dots all over our bodies that the computer could recognize. It couldn't recognize our body. And then it was fed into the computer.
That's Finch's version of a sex scene. Keeps it left lie between her stomach and around the breast and under her arms, and through these beads of sweat, frozen a blue sky over us. So shit, Finch, whatever you want, man.
I love this. The gargoyle's so great.
And the wink. It's so funny to watch this movie once you know what the underlying reality is. It's really funny to watch all these scenes with her. She's so funny. She comes down, she gargles coffee, gives him a wink, you know. He's a jerk to her and she leaves, you know.
People would get settled and be like, oh, we hate her, we hate her, we hate her. And
Yeah.
the second time you see it, you feel so sorry.
Oh, she endures so much awfulness.
Who wrote that?
I had this roommate, this was a horrible robe. This was her ratty, rotten robe. And borrowed it for the, borrowed it for the flick. No.
Did
Well,
100
I remember
squats.
because Andy and I come over to your house.
And
and when
50,
you first started
knees
that row, I was like,
elbows.
what do you think?
That's pretty good.
He's got
Squats
the
got hard.
sunglasses and the Gucci loafers. And I was just like, okay.